Your job as the developer, as the people who are managing that product and talking and thinking about that, is to think about,
do you still think it's worth it for someone that has no experience with app development to come in and try their luck?
To get my first 10 users, if I were to start over today, I'd probably hang out.
Which categories do you think make the most sense to chase after if you're trying to build something?
A free plan could be a good idea for like an acquisition strategy.
Like other developers that they have a full-time job, they got some other stuff they're doing, but they really want to build an app and they're having a hard time juggling everything.
The first thing I would say to realize is that you're not going to get around doing the work. You're going to really have to work at.
Would you recommend for other people starting off to find a co-founder that has skills they don't have, or would you just recommend for them to go learn if they need to learn themselves?
You want a co-founder and you're looking for a co-founder. I think the most important thing is not what the complementary skills necessarily are. Just find people who you really love working with.
When you're thinking about who to hire on your team, what would be the first 2 hires you would make?
So the first hire we made, it was like,
if you've ever dreamed of building a Shopify app, or hey, maybe you're building one right now and you're kind of stuck. If that sounds like you, stop what you're doing. You need to watch this video. In this video, I brought on Andrew Lay, a Shopify app expert with over 10 years of experience building on the Shopify App Store, and he's here to tell us all about his experiences of building a Shopify app, as well as what we need to do to build a successful Shopify app in 2025. And he's dropping all the secrets, including answers to questions I know you're thinking about, like how to figure out what type of Shopify app to build, how to get your first 10 customers, when it makes sense to find a co-founder and build your Shopify app with them, as well as how to price your app to make sure you're making money from the beginning. Now, this isn't just theory. This is real world experience from someone who's been there and is actually doing it. We're gonna cut through all the noise and get to the core of what's actually working on the Shopify App Store in 2025. All right, let's get into it. Hey everyone, Patrick from Code That Converts here. I have a very special guest today. We have a co-founder of the Shopify app Cleverific, Andrew. Andrew, please introduce yourself to us.
Hey, Patrick, thanks for having me on. I'm Andrew. I'm the co-founder of Cleverific. I'm the technical co-founder, and I lead everything that's technical in the product, including product management and sales. Great to be on here. We've been a Shopify app for about 10 years now. We launched in 2014, around 2015 or so. And we launched at a time in Shopify where it wasn't possible to edit an order. After having worked in the Shopify ecosystem, building stores and everything as an agency for a number of years, we came upon this problem and we thought that it'd be a good opportunity for us to get in there and do something about it. We eventually launched with a way to do a workaround for editing. Had that going for about 4 years or so. In 2019, near 2020 or so, Shopify introduced their order editing features in the platform itself. And that gave us an opportunity to start doing things like self-serve order editing. And so today we still provide, back-end order editing capabilities that are just not available in Shopify, as well as self-serve order editing for customers.
Nice. So based on what you said, you kind of noticed the problem yourself, and that's what gave you the idea, right? Because I was going to ask you where the idea for the app came from.
Yeah. So it was just a major problem in the ecosystem at the time. It was something that we came onto while we were working as an agency. My co-founder and I had worked together for a number of years before that, doing a lot of e-commerce work. She had a great kind of background in fashion, and so we built a lot of stores that are around like pretty fashionable brands that are out there. So. And that's how I got to know the ecosystem. I'm also a Ruby on Rails developer. And so Shopify was very big in the Rails scene around that time. So this would have been starting around like early 2009 or so.
Yeah, no, you're a real OG. Listen, Ruby on Rails, it should still be used. I think it's better than most of the stuff we have out there now, to be honest.
I mean, we're still using it, so,
Hey, there we go. So anybody watching that thinks you can't use Ruby on Rails to build a Shopify app, think again. All right, so real quick, if you had to give like a 30-second elevator pitch to what Cleverific was, let's say you're at like some kind of meeting or something, what would you say?
Yeah. So today our pitch is all around self-serve order editing. And the use case is pretty cut and dry for us. When you're say you're a customer and you place an order, right? As soon as you receive that order confirmation email, what you're going to see is you're going to see what you ordered, you're going to see your shipping address, and you look at your shipping address and you think, oh no, the autocomplete put in the wrong uh, address, right? It was your mom's address, when
Right.
you're staying over at your mom's during Christmas or something, or God forbid, it's your ex-girlfriend's house, and
Uh,
you can't go back over there, right?
I don't want to make that
Um,
call.
so, yeah, right. So, classically, you basically have to email the brand and hopefully they can respond to you in time, right? Before that thing goes out. Because if it goes out and at that point either they have a lost package or you have to figure out how to return it or go pick it up wherever it might be or have it sent to you. And what we provide is we provide a way that merchants can easily add an extension to their customer accounts that allows you as the customer to go in there and make that change yourself. It takes just a couple of seconds for you to go and do it. Whereas if your support team as a brand had to go there and do that themselves, support teams usually have a first response time of at least 3 to 4 hours. Most support teams respond within 24 hours, whereas they're fulfilling orders and sending those out within 2 to 4 hours usually.
Got you. Yeah, I can see how that could be bad. Oh man, I'm just picturing myself sending my products to my ex girlfriend's house and then having to call her up. And
Yeah,
this
but it you
answers the
know
phone.
it doesn't even have to be as dramatic as that. Sometimes, you place an order and you're like, it's not going to get here in time. So you just want to cancel it, right? Why do you have to kind of wait 24, 48 hours for a human being to get back to you when you should be able to just go in there and click a couple of buttons to cancel it, right?
Right.
Or, maybe you placed an order and you're like, you know what? I ordered a, size 10 shoe, but I should have gotten 11, right? And if you were able to change it online, you're done, right? But if you can't, now you have a return scenario. Now it's even more work for you, right? Would you ever go back to that brand and place an order there?
No,
Maybe
and the
not.
brand hate dealing with returns too, so that makes sense.
Right, right.
Makes a lot of sense. Wow, I imagine it's probably also good for people that travel a lot too, and they're in one location, a different location. They could just easily switch the different addresses. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that definitely happens. And sometimes, hey, we're all human, right? We make mistakes when we're ordering things, right? Some
Hmm.
of the mistakes, some of the cancel reasons, for example, have been really funny. Because we get to see all that data. Somebody was saying like, oh, I was shopping while I was high, and I really shouldn't do that anymore. Um, so, or somebody else said, yeah, I bought this for my partner, but we broke up, and so we don't need it anymore.
Right. Oh man, that's funny. Well, one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you is because you are a wealth of knowledge in the Shopify app ecosystem, right? A lot of the people that I talk to either haven't really delved that deeply into apps or pretty much don't know what they're talking about, which is why I'm happy to have you on. So I really wanted to ask you this. So it's 2025 now. There are tons of
Mhm.
apps on the App Store at this point, right? Do you still think it's worth it for someone that has no experience with app development to come in and try their luck in the App Store? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why I think it's still a big opportunity, or at least it's a great learning experience to do so, is because that in the Shopify ecosystem, there's tons of brands, tons of merchants, right? And there's a lot of action going on. And nothing teaches you more about how to actually run a business or how to actually build an app and actually how to deal with customers than having actual customers, right? And so going into an ecosystem where there's people, there's action, there's business going on, that's the best place for you to learn. The last thing you want to do is build something, and you put it out there in the world, and you find that not a single person ever comes by to use it, or they can't even find you, right? And so,
Right.
if somebody's even thinking about it, just as a learning experience, forget the business side, forget the making money thing. Um, you're going to get, the best use of your time by going where the action is.
Wow, that's a great answer, especially for those people out there that like they're in between roles, or they're trying to get into the Shopify ecosystem. They don't know what to do. So anybody watching, build a Shopify app to get some experience. You heard it first from Andrew. But okay, with that being said, which categories do you think make the most sense to chase after if you're trying to build something?
Yeah, it's so that's kind of open-ended question. There's not one single category, I think, but if you're out there, you're thinking about what to do, and it's especially if it's your first time, go play in an area that has of a lot of apps in it, and especially a lot of apps that have lots of reviews, right? Because the more apps that have tons of reviews in the ecosystem or in that category, the better. And the reason is because what that means is that there are, there's lots of merchants shopping around, right? Some of those apps, I think some of the most shopped around apps out there are, say, for example, subscription apps and abandoned cart apps are in that category as well. And then I would say upselling apps.
Mm.
They all have lots of merchants shopping around for them, and that's because they're looking to see what works. They have everybody has different ideas about how these things should work or how they should be used. And so that gives you an opportunity to go in there, one, find a foothold, two, it's because you'll have merchants shopping around. They're more likely to come in and just install your app and see how it goes, so that you can start having a customer developer relationship with them. And once you start having that relationship, you find your first couple of customers, you can basically just keep talking to them, to one, learn more about the problem space, learn more about how they view the world, how they expect you to provide value, and then really build yourself up from there.
Listen, by the way, the first time I asked you that, last time we spoke, right? You really changed like how my perspective on a lot of stuff. And I know it's like obvious advice, like focus on where the money's at. But I was like,
Mhm.
he's right. Like, like why would I build an announcement bar app that has analytics in it when I could focus on what actually drives revenue, right?
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, again, I guess a good way to figure that out too is to check out what apps are in the store and see the ones that are like $5 a month and less, right? It's probably not a good thing to chase after unless you like being broke.
Yeah. Definitely don't try to price your app down at $5 or less. Hey, maybe you live in a part of the world that can support that. But I can tell you from experience that you're not going to be able to run servers. You're not going to be able to do things professionally. It's not going to be worth your time, if every customer is worth $5 a month to you.
Right.
It's just not possible. Maybe at best you have a business that kind of supports a $5 a month app, or maybe that $5 a month is a customer acquisition strategy. But if you're trying to solely make a living, or build a business that's based around the app, at minimum you got to be charging $29 to $49 a month for that. And if your app can't provide that level of value, figure out a way for it to provide that level of value.
Focus on the money. I love it. Love it. Speaking of money, by the way, this is something that I've never got a clear answer on. What are your thoughts on having a free plan for your app versus immediately starting off with paid plans?
Yeah, a free plan could be a good idea for like an acquisition strategy, but we personally don't have a free plan on our app. And part of that is because free users, they expect a lot out of you for very little. They expect a lot of you for free, right? And it's hard to get really, really good signals from there, right? And it's hard to know that you're building the right thing or that you're finding product market fit if you're not charging a customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it really comes down to dollars, if you're giving away something for free, then everybody will be like, yeah, well, I'll try it and I'll do it, right? But if it's at least like a couple dollars, especially if it's $29 or looking at $49 a month, um, that'll really tell you if you've got something on the line here, right? And if all you have a bunch of free users and eventually you start charging for it, I think you might find out that your users are more users than customers.
Right. Plus, they're super annoying. Free plan users. I have my own experiences with that. I used to build little code snippets like, oh, instead of having this app for this, you can just use this, right? And they are in my
Mm-hmm.
YouTube comments day and night asking for free stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
The
hey,
free users are the most demanding ones. So
yeah, like, it'd be
yeah.
really nice if we could have this feature. I'm like, you're right. It really would be nice. Like, I agree with
Yeah.
you. Okay, speaking of users too. So most people when they start an app, they're thinking about having 1,000 users and sitting on a beach somewhere and not doing any work. But they often don't think about how to get their first user or their first 10 users, right? So if you were starting over again in this ecosystem, right? What would you say is a good plan to get your first 10 users?
To get my first 10 users, if I were to start over today, I'd probably hang out where the merchants are hanging out. I'd be hanging out like on Shopify forums, on like on Reddit. You know, there are also like Shopify specific like paid communities, like paid Facebook groups and stuff like that, private groups. I try to work my way into there and just sit there and listen for good problems, right? And when you find somebody who has an interesting or good problem in the space that you want to go down, or like the path that you want to go down, you could start engaging with that person. That's how I find my first customer, right? Get them on board, get them, trying your app, trying what you're doing, and just develop feedback through that and have some sort of interaction there. And then from there, I'd work through their network, ask for referrals, get it from that one customer to the next, two, three, four, and then all the way to 10.
Nice. I especially like the
That first,
tip about, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut
oh
you
yeah,
off.
go
Good.
for it. I was going to say that those first 10 customers, that's all going to be boots on the ground, word of mouth kind of stuff, right? And
Got
you're going
you.
to have some sort of like, pretty close connection to all of those customers, right?
Right.
After that, it starts to grow and become people, but when you first get that customer who you didn't have a personal relationship, who you didn't know, it's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah. It's like the unscalable stuff you recommend then, like having real relationships
Mhm.
with them, talking to them. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Now, I like the tip you mentioned about the paid groups as well, because a lot of people in paid groups, they got skin in the game. Like they want to succeed at what they're doing. So I feel like they're more
Hmm.
likely to answer questions about it if they think it can help them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right. So I remember last time we spoke, you mentioned when you started Cleverific, you had a bunch of other stuff going on with your agency clients, right? So
Hmm.
what advice would you give to people like me or like other developers that they have a full time job, they got some other stuff they're doing, but they really want to build an app and they're having a hard time juggling everything?
Yeah, that one's hard. I have to go back 10 years to remember what that was like, which is a while ago. 10 years ago, it was definitely a lot of work. And the first thing I would say to realize is that you're not going to get around doing the work, right? And you're going to really have to work at scheduling your time, right? You're going to have to work at, creating blocks of time for yourself that you can kind of juggle these responsibilities. But besides that, some basic things is, hey, if you're a developer and you're building an app, use some technologies that right? This is not a great time while you're doing that to like go out and see if you could build a Shopify app in Rust, right? Or in, the next flavor of Lisp that's out there, right? Really not a good time to do that. If you want to do a technical project that's interesting and explores a fun new language, do that. That's a separate project, right? But if you have something that customers depend on, right, it should be in a language that, or a stack that kind of hands down, so that when you're really working with the customer, right, you can put their needs first instead of saying, oh, let me turn around and I have to learn X, Y, and Z in order to figure this
Right.
part out, right? Um, so do it in something that or at least that you have access to great resources that can help you throughout on that. All right, that'll take away a lot of the stress. That'll allow you also to be more productive when you're actually spending the time working on your app. All right. And then next, like I would say, don't forget to have a little fun, right? So,
Oh,
it'll
we
be
can,
a lot of work. Yeah, go ahead.
as I said, we're allowed to sleep then and go out and have fun.
Yeah. You're allowed to sleep. You're allowed to have a little fun. Just make sure you're scheduling the time. I would say that a little bit every day is way better than just every couple of days you're going to pull an all nighter, right? Like that's going to wreck you, right? So just keep the ball moving every single day, keep it consistent, and then you'll eventually get there, and you can eventually trade off that time so that you can do more and more in your own app.
Nice. And so it sounds like, and we talked about this before, so if you're not familiar with the Shopify app templates they put out, you definitely wouldn't recommend using them then.
Maybe, yeah, maybe not. Use them for inspiration. Personally, we use I don't know if it's an app template, but we use the Shopify app Ruby gem. And so that's actually where we started on that. And, it worked fine for what we wanted to use it for. We use less and less of it actually, over the years, just because, I personally like to pull out dependencies so that we don't have lots of dependencies on various gems or anything like that, just so that we can control the stability of our app for our merchants.
Makes perfect sense. And honestly, I'm so happy you said that because now I don't have to waste time learning Remix. So thank you.
Yeah,
Listen,
it seems cool. I mess with it just because I was technically curious on it. Was it ever going to replace Rails rate? Yeah, no, it's not. So we're going to stay on the Rails side of things for a good long time.
I really tried for all of 5 minutes. I really tried. Once I got some package, oh, this package is not working with this package. I have to go update this, and then this is broken. I said, I'm good. I'm okay.
Yeah, nothing like a little dependency hell to,
Yeah,
wake you up
it's
in the morning.
actually crazy. I ended up having to pay someone just to show me how to get through the Shopify auth process on my own in just native Express.js and Node. And once I got that, I was like, all right, we're good. I can do whatever I want
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Okay, so here's a big question for you. So you mentioned that you have a co-founder, right? Would you
Mhm.
recommend for other people starting off to find a co-founder that has skills they don't have, or would you just recommend for them to go learn if they need to learn themselves?
It's great to have a co-founder with skills that you don't have, especially I think the classic relationship, which is my relationship with my co-founder, is one's a developer and one's a designer, right? Because that could help you really get things that are looking good, and feel really, really professional. But you know what? If you want a co-founder, and I do recommend having a co-founder, and if you want a co-founder and you're looking for a co-founder, I think the most important thing is not what the complementary skills necessarily are. Just find people who you really love working with, right? Because when you really love working with somebody and you just really kind of jive together, it's both of you pushing the ball forward, right? And figuring things out as you go. Because you know what? Nobody has all the answers, right? Even if somebody's, hey, this is my expertise, there's also so many other things that kind of come into building the business together that you're learning so many things, as you go anyway, right?
Mm.
So you're never going to have enough co-founders to like plug every single hole, right? Ideally, as you grow, you could just kind of hire into those things, but in those early days, and as you're moving forward, just having somebody that you get along with, you see eye to eye with, that you can work well together with, and especially work through problems together. Because there'll be so many times where you don't see eye to eye on things, and you got to be able to navigate that. That's the biggest thing to figure out in a co-founder relationship.
Okay, and how did you know you found the right person for you?
Well, I got lucky. I feel like my co-founder and I, we got lucky over the course of I don't know, 4 or 5 years or something. My co-founder and I met to work on a project together. We were introduced via some friends, mutual friends, in like 2009. And we started working together on that project, and we are like, hey, it's fun working with you. And, that went back and forth. And eventually, once that project completed, if she had a project that needed a developer, then she'd throw it towards me. If I had a project that needed a designer, I'd, pull her in on that. And it went back and forth like that for a number of years. After a little while, after like 4 or 5 years or so, we had a discussion where it's like, hey, we work well together. Maybe we should start a company together, and then there were questions about, okay, what are we going to do? But all that aside there, we found each other as co-founders by working together, right? And nothing tells you more about how you'll work with somebody than actually just working with them, So if you're looking for a co-founder, right, it's like dating, you got to date somebody before you settle down, right? You don't go speed dating and then pop the question, in 30 minutes, right?
Right.
So go start working with people, find people you love to work with, do interesting projects, get things done, right? And then see if it works.
Nice. And hopefully finding a co-founder is a lot easier than finding a girlfriend because it's hard out here. Especially in New York, these women are not kind. It is not.
Yeah, it would probably be a lot easier to find a co-founder than. Yeah, I don't envy anybody who's dating right now. So
yeah, listen, it's tough out here. But speaking of things that are difficult to deal with, this is a big one. How do you deal with platform risk and preventing Shopify from eating your lunch?
Yeah, well, I feel like we're one of the poster childs of platform risk, right? Because, geez, in the 4 or 5 years that we were just starting, everybody who we told, we're talking to about the app would say, well, that's obvious. Like, why doesn't Shopify have that in their platform yet? And like, we agree, right? But, there we were in that situation, right? And at the end of the day, I think anything that you build could be viewed in, as a, hey, that's a feature, not a company sort of lens there, right? And your job as the developer, as the people who are managing that product and talking and thinking about that, is to think about not just what the product is today, but where it needs to go, and where are the needs that, say, a company like Shopify are not going to go chase down, right? In Shopify's sense, like in their thinking, right, when they build a feature, they've got to build a feature that is applicable for like 5 million merchants, right? I think it's around that number. And they've got to be able to have a feature that basically works for 80% of those merchants, without having it be too complicated, and without having it, be too difficult to set up, for example, right? That leaves the next 20%, right? And that next 20% has very individualized needs, right? And that's the space where you can start finding a niche, right? Where you can go in and say, hey, we're going to be the app that can be flexible in exactly these ways, so that this subset of merchants here and that 20% can do what they need to do, right? So that they can go and achieve their goals there, right? We're talking about 5 million merchants. 20% of merchants is like, it's like 2 million merchants, right?
Right.
It's still a big number, right? And so there's plenty of room for us to go in there and play and solve those levels of problems. And that's kind of Shopify's vision for that ecosystem as well. And so I think that pretty much aligns with how Shopify sees things. And then something else to think about is that Shopify, even when they're building the features that kind of eventually plug those holes, right? We always knew at some point Shopify was going to build in order editing into their platform, right? We knew that from day one, right? But we had a 4-year head start just thinking about that, right? And so what's going to happen after that gets built, right? What does that enable for us to go and do, right? And so our point of view on it was fairly optimistic in that we knew Shopify was going to do it, and we also knew that if and when Shopify did it, that it actually enables some really big features for us, right? Big things that we're able to do going forward, right? Such as self-serve order editing, right? So that customers can go in and edit their own orders, right? So you kind of look at it at that lens there, right? Now, is Shopify going to go and do that eventually too? We think so, right? But it's actually it's pretty complicated territory, right? And we've got a major head start in running uphill and finding where all the gopher holes are that you might twist your ankle in, right? And plugging those. So and that'll be a better user experience for merchants than what Shopify will be able to or will plan to go and put out there for themselves, right? For the 80% that are out there. A good example here as well is the kind of two big examples are abandoned cart emails and subscription apps, right? For abandoned cart emails, for the longest time, Shopify didn't support that. And then one day, they're like, okay, fine, we got to build this, right? There were tons of apps in that category at that time. Abandoned cart email apps were like the most popular app category in the ecosystem at that point in time. And when Shopify came out with it, years later, it remained one of the top app categories. And that's because, Shopify puts out the basics that are great for kind of, beginners and small merchants. But bigger merchants, more sophisticated merchants want more sophisticated features and more power, right? And as app developers, those are the things that we're able to go in there and use some of these, features that would otherwise steamroller your own opportunities, if you were to look at it negatively, and build something on top of that to provide those merchants with more value.
Right. And I'm sure you're constantly testing out different ideas of features you can add to your app as well, right?
We are, and that is something that we do because merchants come to us with problems, and we're like, hey, that's interesting, right? So, hey, as you're building stuff, definitely talk to your customers, definitely talk to the merchants, and listen for what their problems are, and also figure out if it's valuable to them, right? So, because not every problem is valuable to solve either.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that. How do you prioritize the problems that will actually push Cleverific forward versus the ones that are like only one guy wants this, nobody else really cares about it?
Yeah. So we have kind of two answers to that. One is that we have a broader vision for the product, for the app in general. And when people come to us and they want something that fits within that vision, that helps us kind of move that up the priority stack, so to speak. And then, as a kind of back end sort of thing, we also provide a level of professional services, like a little bit of consulting stuff that we do still. And so if there's a custom dev project that somebody really, really wants, we could put a price tag on that. Basically, it's like, okay, well, this doesn't really align with our vision for the product. But we could see how it's going to be valuable for you. We could do it under a professional services contract, and that costs, X amount of dollars, right? And that kind of forces them to decide whether or not they're going to whether it's really worth it for them or not.
Right. That's pretty cool too, because you could add some extra revenue that way. That's cool.
Yeah, we don't like doing it because there's it messes up our schedule, but and so we've over the years we've definitely increased the price tag on that quite a bit. But sometimes if there's if there's a merchant who has a burning need for a solution here, and and we're perfectly suited to provide that solution, then it's hard to turn down somebody who you can help. So this is a way for us to be able to offer that without hating ourselves at the same time.
Right. That makes sense. Side question for that. Have you ever had to like deprecate a feature that you thought would work out, but then no one actually uses it?
Oh yeah, definitely. And we're constantly kind of on the lookout for that as well. I can't even recall some of the ones, but we had a couple of templating features, for example, that we just at some point we're just like, we're going to kill this thing, right? And then we also have features that we have. The way our deployment pipeline works, we have a bunch of flippers on the back end that we can flip on and off for any individual store, and that allows us to enable or disable features. Say either on a rollout basis, that's like 10%, 20%, 30% of users will get this feature. Or say, hey, this individual store is going to get this feature, right? And what that allows us to do is to deploy and test whether or not a merchant is going to get some value out of this feature. And we've definitely had features where, a merchant, really wanted it, or we put out there for, a good percentage of the users, and it just didn't go anywhere, right? Just didn't matter for any of them, right? Even the ones who we interviewed and they were really asking for it, right, and didn't end up using it. And so, after a certain amount of time, 6 months or so, we'll just kill it, because code is it's a liability, right? Having that code, maintaining it, having to update it. If nobody's using it and you're sure nobody's using it, get it out of there.
Mm-hmm. Do you track like with certain analytics tools, or how does that?
Yeah. So the flipper goes there is one, and so we have a list of which shops or which merchants are using which flippers, if they're using any flippers at all, and then we also track what merchants are or what features are getting used through Mixpanel. So we send that data into Mixpanel, and it's just, oh hey, like a merchant used this feature, essentially is how we track that.
Got you. Okay. This is actually the last question I have for you. But this is pretty interesting. So once you're starting to see success and you think you're ready to start moving at scale a little bit, right? When you're thinking about who to hire on your team, what would be the first 2 hires you would make?
Yeah, the first hire we made, it was a customer service person, because we really cared about customer service, and we wanted a customer service person who was going to be able to work with us directly, and also had a little bit of technical chops. They weren't a programmer, but they really knew their way around and could get their way around software, right? And customer service is definitely a differentiator. It's something that I kind of cut my teeth on, like not growing up, but like coming up, was being able to serve customers and really have an eye towards solving problems. So, back when I was in college, I was a pharmacy tech. I was a chemistry major in college, and I was a pharmacy tech all through college. And at the pharmacy I worked at, we would like ship medications and stuff, and sometimes these were really important medications, right? And if FedEx was slow or something happened, you had to, customers were really mad, right? Or if it wasn't going to get delivered on time. And one time, like there was either something we did wrong, or the refill didn't come in from the doctor in time or something. And, there was something that was on a FedEx truck that got to its location, but they weren't going to be able to deliver it until the next day. Right. And, we had because of the type of, pharmacy that we had, kind of broad discretion to solve problems there, which is something that I learned from the owner of that business. And we were able to figure out, like, hey, actually, I could pay a courier to show up, pick up the package, and then deliver it by hand to this customer. And it saved her day. She would have otherwise, been in a lot of pain otherwise there. So it was something that I learned there, which is that when we're dealing with customer service, and especially in the app ecosystem, especially with using a technical product, that um, we always find a way to be of service, even if our app isn't the solution for them, right? And I think and we consciously chose that when we hired a customer service person as our first hire, and that was somebody who I worked directly with every single day, in order to make sure that tickets were triaged, that things were escalated correctly, and that our customers were getting taken care of. And I think it shows in all of our reviews throughout the years, and it shows to this day. It's still part of our ethos, and I still believe that it's one of our most differentiating features.
Nice. And I'm happy your time as a pharmacy tech actually did something for you. I spent some time as a pharmacy tech as well. I didn't learn anything.
Oh, no
So
way.
I'm happy you got something out of it. All I learned was how much I hated pharmacy.
Hey, I learned that too. So,
Man. No, but thank you so much for your time and for answering all these questions. For anybody watching, is there anything in particular you want to promote, or where can they find you and learn more about you?
yeah, if you want to learn more about us, you can go to cleverific.com, and we're there. We're the leaders in order editing and self-serve order editing. We've been doing it for 10 years, and we really know our stuff.
All right, nice. I'm gonna put that link in the description. Do you have any personal sites you want to recommend as well if you want to learn more about you in particular?
No. I wish actually I had a better answer for that. Actually, find me on LinkedIn. I'm posting on LinkedIn more these days. I technically have a personal blog, but I don't really keep that up. So where you'll find me the most is on LinkedIn, and I'm posting stuff about our company. I'm posting stuff about our development process, and I post Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tutorials. So if you're interested in that, come check it out.
Hey, thanks for watching the whole video. Now, I hope you got a lot out of that interview because I got a ton out of it. I'm building my first Shopify app this year, so I'm gonna be using a lot of the tips Andrew talked about when building that out. Hopefully, you got something out of it too. Now, if you're a Shopify store owner watching this video and you want to check out Cleverific, I put links in the description to their website as well as to the Shopify app listing. As you can see from the video, Andrew's an expert. He's good at what he does. You definitely can't go wrong with him. So check him out. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all on the next one.